The great G7 summit meeting, which President Biden of the United States no doubt intended to present a united front against China and to unveil his great projects for a consolidated Western alliance and for an alternative to China's Belt and Road Initiative, is degenerating or has degenerated instead into an unseemly row on the vexed and perpetual subject of Brexit. In fact, as I am speaking, that row has been escalating, with the British becoming increasingly angry at the pressure under which they have been put. And the major cause of the anger was a difficult exchange that took place between Boris Johnson, the British Prime Minister, and Emmanuel Macron, the President of France. As I understand it, what happened was as follows. Boris Johnson, attempted to tell Macron why he is becoming increasingly frustrated by the Northern Ireland Protocol, which is in the withdrawal agreement, which Johnson, together with Macron, by the way, largely negotiated in the autumn of 2019. He did so by asking Macron how he would feel if sausages from Toulouse could not be moved to Paris. Apparently, Macron responded that the comparison did not work because Paris and Toulouse are both part of the same country. Thereby, Macron implied to the British that Northern Ireland is not part of the United Kingdom. Johnson was apparently furious and discussed this with his associates, his cabinet and his officials. And then he went on Sky News and gave an interview, which I discussed in my previous video, in which he said that some leaders needed to get into their heads that the United Kingdom is a single country. Macron then responded by getting the Elysée, as I suspect he thought, to row back somewhat on the comment that he made. Specifically, we're now told that Macron had not intended to cast doubt upon Northern Ireland's the fact that Northern Ireland is a part of the United Kingdom. Instead, he simply wanted to point out that Northern Ireland is not part of Great Britain. Now, technically, Macron is right about this. The formal name of the country of which I am a citizen is the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. That, of course, expressly or explicitly admits that Northern Ireland is not part of Great Britain being the political union of the three component parts which make up the island of Britain, those three component parts being England, Wales and Scotland. Northern Ireland is not a part of that particular union because, of course, it is not part of Britain, which is the island of Britain, of which those three states form a part. However, that is a medieval formality. Northern Ireland is a part of the United Kingdom, which is and remains to a very great extent a unitary state. Moreover, whatever some people may feel about that, Northern Ireland is inhabited by a large number of people who consider themselves to be very much British. They will be deeply incensed by these comments by Macron, which they will construe as denying their nationality. Now, I'm going to make a few observations about how this whole row has originated, and we have to go back in time to the start of the Brexit negotiations under the previous British Prime Minister, Theresa May. Theresa May, as we all may remember, tried to negotiate a very complicated arrangement with the Europeans, which included a backstop on the subject, on the issue, the specific issue of Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland had been the venue for a prolonged war or conflict between the Protestant community within Northern Ireland, which for most of Northern Ireland's history has formed the majority and is still the majority at the moment, and which is loyal to Britain, and the very large Catholic minority, which is politically Republican and which wants Northern Ireland to join the Irish Republic, which is, of course, the country to the south of Northern Ireland, which forms the greater part of the Republic of Ireland. Here I will express briefly my own view. I agree with the view that sooner or later Northern Ireland should rejoin the Irish Republic so that Ireland is fully reunified, and I believe that is the only eventual and certain route to peace in Ireland, and that moreover I also believe that sooner or later it is inevitable. However, it is a view which, as I have just said, is bitterly contested by many people in the Northern Ireland, those who are Protestant and Unionist and who think of themselves as British and who want to remain part of the United Kingdom and who do not want to see Northern Ireland join the Irish Republic. Now, in order to end that conflict in the 1990s, an agreement was reached between the competing parties, which set up a power-sharing arrangement whereby they would agree to share power within Northern Ireland, which would remain for the time being a part of the United Kingdom. And it was understood, though I understand not explicitly set out in the agreement, that there would be a soft border, or indeed a invisible and transparent border between Northern Ireland and the Irish Republic, so that goods and people would be able to travel backwards and forwards without having to report to customs barriers, something which was easy to do because in those days the United Kingdom of Great Britain, which includes Northern Ireland, was a part of the European Union, of which the Irish Republic is also a part, and of course the European Union believes in unrestricted movement of goods and people throughout all parts of the Union. So that was the agreement that was made both explicitly and implicitly in the 1990s, which brought the long conflict in Northern Ireland to an end. Now, it is important to stress at this point that the British, for their part, have never said that they really want to change the border arrangements. As far as they're concerned, the optimal solution for Britain would be one where Britain left the European Union but agreed a free trade arrangement with the European Union, which would allow goods and people to move backwards and forwards across the Irish border, exactly as they did before. The European Union, however, has never liked that idea, because as far as they're concerned, an open border in Ireland would be an open border between the European Union and a country which, following Brexit, would be outside it. So they insisted that some kind of arrangement needed to be agreed whereby that transparent open border would be preserved, and that whereby Britain would itself agree to this. Now, the assumption that was made, and it was a assumption that was made in Brussels, and of course by Theresa May, I'm sure, in London, was that this would mean that the United Kingdom would remain in some form within the European single market. It's difficult to see how this backstop, which Theresa May agreed to, could function with Britain leaving the European single market unless Northern Ireland were economically detached from the United Kingdom. The European Union undoubtedly assumed that the British would never agree to this. They would never agree to Northern Ireland becoming economically detached from the rest of the United Kingdom. And I am no doubt at all that this whole exercise was done as a device to keep Britain in effect within the European single market. Well, Theresa May's attempts to keep Britain within the European single market and her attempt to do so via the Irish backstop proved extremely unpopular with the Conservative Party and its supporters, and with the majority of people in Britain who had supported Brexit. And as a result, over the course of 2019, she found it impossible to get her withdrawal agreement through the House of Commons, and she also found her support and the support of her government collapsing across Britain. Eventually, in the summer of 2019, she resigned and was replaced by Boris Johnson, who was committed to getting Brexit done. But, of course, he faced the same set of problems as Theresa May had done, or to be more precise, he faced a set of problems which Theresa May had bequeathed to him. Because what Boris Johnson quickly discovered is that after Theresa May agreed to the Irish backstop, the European Union categorically refused to withdraw or to backtrack on it. In other words, they continued to insist that there had to be an Irish backstop within the withdrawal agreement if Britain was to leave the European Union without a no-deal Brexit. Now, it was fairly clear over the course of the summer and autumn to most careful observers that Boris Johnson himself would not have been averse to a no-deal Brexit. That is to say, a Brexit which proceeded without a withdrawal agreement on the due date that Brexit was supposed to take place, which was in October 2019. And that had that, of course, happened, then the entirety of Britain would have left the European Union, Britain together with Northern Ireland, but this would have been done without any trade or other arrangements being put in place. Now, I think it's fair to say that whilst Boris Johnson himself was relaxed about this possibility, he faced an insuperable problem, which was that the British Parliament, which was dominated by his opponents and by opponents of Brexit, was implacably opposed. They were opposed to a no-deal Brexit, insisted that there had to be a withdrawal agreement with the EU, and with the EU insisting that the withdrawal agreement had to include an Irish backstop, the whole process of Brexit seemed to have been stymied. Well, Johnson got round this problem by a sleight of hand. He had a meeting with Macron in the General Assembly in New York. This is in late autumn 2019. And the two agreed a deal, which was then accepted by the rest of the European Union, whereby, in order to conform with the provisions of the backstop, Northern Ireland would remain within the European single market, but the rest of Britain would leave. And that was the withdrawal agreement that Boris Johnson presented to the House of Commons, and that was the withdrawal agreement which eventually passed. It is imperative to say that had Boris Johnson not made that fundamental concession about the status of Northern Ireland, he would not have been able to get his withdrawal agreement agreed by the House of Commons, or and he would not have been able to persuade the House of Commons to agree to a general election. So that is the reason why we have the Northern Ireland Protocol. The Northern Ireland Protocol within the withdrawal agreement keeps Northern Ireland within the EU's single market, detaching it economically from Britain, and Johnson had to agree to that, in effect as an act of force majeure, in order to get Brexit done. Now, the problem is that this has always been deeply unpopular with much of the Protestant majority in Northern Ireland. And what Boris Johnson has been saying is that this is creating problems in Northern Ireland itself. It is gradually destabilising the situation there as the economic situation in Northern Ireland becomes more complicated because it cannot trade equally with the rest of the United Kingdom, even though it is in theory part of the same country, and because many people who consider themselves to be British in Northern Ireland are becoming extremely unhappy with this arrangement. Moreover, it is important always to remember that Boris Johnson heads what is officially the Conservative and Unionist Party. In other words, it is a party which is committed to preserving all parts of the British Union and of the United Kingdom. It would be politically all but impossible for Boris Johnson to disregard the murmurs and disaffection that is beginning to become evident amongst the Protestant majority in Northern Ireland. And this is why, over the last couple of months, he has been trying to get the European Union to agree to renegotiate the Northern Ireland Protocol. The point he is making, I'm sure he's making this in private, is that the backstop ploy failed. It didn't keep Britain within the European single market. And in light of this, for the European Union to go on insisting that Northern Ireland remain in the European single market is not only destabilising of the situation in Northern Ireland, but has lost its purpose and is an attempt by the European Union to interfere in Britain's internal affairs. Now, what he has come up against is the usual complete refusal of the European Union to change a dot or comma in any treaty it has negotiated. This is, by the way, a constant feature of European Union diplomacy. They come up with extremely complex and intricate agreements, which they expect other people to sign up to, and they invariably refuse to negotiate on any part of it. And so this has created an impasse, and it is an impasse which Johnson has been saying he is prepared to break by unilaterally abrogating the Northern Ireland Protocol, as the withdrawal agreement in fact allows him to do. Now, this is a complicated explanation of a simple issue, and I understand that there are some people in the EU who are saying that the British and Boris Johnson are not sticking by the promises they made. But the British will respond to that these promises that they made were promises extracted from them in bad faith by a European Union that didn't really want Britain to exit the European Union at all, and which was looking to keep Britain in the single market by manipulating the situation in Northern Ireland to its advantage. I have to say that there is a further dimension to this now. And it is one which I am sure is going to gain increasing traction in London over the next few weeks, the more this situation continues. This is that the attempts by the European leaders to meddle in this affair of Northern Ireland are actually exacerbating the situation there. In particular, Macron's recent comment insinuating that Northern Ireland is not, properly speaking, a part of the United Kingdom, or, if you prefer, not a part of Britain, is going to enrage and upset many people in Northern Ireland. Given how delicate the situation in Northern Ireland is, given the fact that both sides have their militias, which still exist and are still armed and could still be activated in various forms, making these kind of wild comments seems to me extraordinarily maladroit, to put it mildly. In fact, I seriously expect that before very long, people in London, in the British government, and perhaps even in the media and in the rest of the political class, will start to suspect that the European Union is deliberately trying to incite trouble and violence in Northern Ireland in order to blame Boris Johnson and to try to undermine him by insisting or insinuating that it is because he is not abiding by the Northern Ireland Protocol that this situation has arisen. Whereas in reality, it is the European Union's own interference in the situation in Northern Ireland with these maladroit comments from Emmanuel Macron, which are in fact heightening the tension there. Well, I would like to believe that that is not the case. I would like to believe that the European Union is not deliberately stirring the pot in Northern Ireland in order to create a crisis there, which they can blame on Johnson. But unfortunately, past experience does make me wonder. All I would say about that is that if this is indeed what the European Union is trying to do, then they need to be extremely careful about what they're doing and should think carefully about the consequences of what they might be wishing for. Because a renewal of violence in Northern Ireland is not going to be restricted to Northern Ireland. It could spread to Britain, quite possibly, but there is a fair chance that it could spread to the Irish Republic as well. And of course, the Irish Republic is part of the European Union and indeed a loyal member of it. And I would not have thought that the European Union would want to see a conflict there. So, I think in its own best interests and for its own sake, what the European Union ought to do is back off. Sooner or later, this problem will solve itself. As I said earlier in this program, I am absolutely sure that it is only a matter of time, if events are allowed to take their course, before the Northern Ireland finally joins the Irish Republic. Moreover, I predict that if things are allowed to take their course, that will be done quietly and peacefully with a minimum of disruption. By contrast, trying to stir up trouble in Northern Ireland is merely going to protract that process, as well as potentially destabilise the Irish Republic and possibly Britain as well. So it is very much in the European Union's interests to let this thing go. If they don't let it go, the chances are that Boris Johnson will be forced to revoke the Northern Ireland Protocol unilaterally. At that point, the European Union will find itself facing what would in effect be a no-deal Brexit situation. Again, I wonder whether that is what the European Union genuinely wants, given the fact that there remains a trade imbalance between Britain and the European Union, at least a trade imbalance in goods, which continues to be in the European Union's favour. So it is, from every point of view, in the European Union's interests to let this issue alone, and to let the British and the Irish to sort it out with each other, as, in my opinion, they will. I'm going to finish this programme by saying something further, and that is that what has, in my opinion, made this situation worse and has overshadowing the G7 summit and complicating its work has been the maladroit actions of the US administration. Coming down so openly in support of the European Union on this question has simply made the European Union dig its heels and insist that the Northern Ireland Protocol must be preserved without a dot or comma being changed in it. As I said, this is not in the European Union's interests any more than it is in Northern Ireland's interests or the Irish Republic's interests. And on top of that, by taking that position, all that the US has managed is to get the G7 summit overshadowed by a row which might otherwise have been avoided. I understand that President Biden and his officials have been telling everybody, the British, the French, the Europeans, the Irish, who are, by the way, present in some form at this summit through their representation by the EU officials who are there, Ursula von der Leyen and all the rest. The administration and the president have been telling all of these people to try to calm down. Well, the reason they need calming down is because the administration itself stirred them up. It's a good example, a further example, if you will, of how ineffectual, or rather insensitive, this administration's foreign policy on far too many issues up to now has been. Anyway, we will see how all this turns out. Boris Johnson, coming under pressure, has been making even more statements since the one I discussed in my previous video, reiterating that the United Kingdom remains one country. I think outsiders need to listen to this and to heed these words and to leave well alone. As I said, left alone, the British and the Irish will sort it out. Of that, I am sure. When outsiders meddle in conflicts like this, conflicts which are always and invariably more complicated than they understand, no good ever comes of it. Well, we shall see whether such wisdom prevails, but I'm sorry to say I'm not confident that it will. Thank you for joining me for this programme on this complicated and difficult subject. I hope you will join me in future programmes, both on this channel and on our main channel, the Duran, where I do programmes with my colleague and friend Alex Christoforou. Please also remember to join us on our other platforms, BitChute, Odyssey, SuperU and Locals, and also, to the extent that you can, support us via PayPal, Patreon, and Subscribestar. And also, of course, come to our Discord server and our shop and buy yourself the amazing things that you will find there. Our amazing magic mugs, our hats, our hoodies, our sweatshirts, our t-shirts, and all the rest. And thank you for joining me for this program on this complex and difficult subject. And I look forward to you joining me again. And please remember to check your subscription and to press the like button on this video. And have a wonderful day until we speak again. Thank you.